So I suppose, like everyone, we're all feeling a bit maybe raw and fragile and emotional. I know myself, I'm in that state. I taught all weekend as well, so I haven't really had any time to process it fully, properly, etc. So I know I'm a bit jangled, and if I may request some forgiveness for lack of clarity and also just some clumsiness. I notice when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I get a little bit clumsy, and so even as simple as making a coffee, I can spill it. So anyway, let's see how we go, but I'll do my best to try to help, of course, and may it be beneficial, but just requesting a little bit more patience. Thank you.
For yourself.
No worries.
Totally. We're all in need of tenderness and care, aren't we? Yeah. So we had this beautiful opportunity given to us by Kabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche to come together in these amazing Dharma centers throughout the world. And, you know, it's amazing kindness that he will continue to care for us and guide us in all our days and beyond. And so in honor of him and all that he's given to us and in the past, the present, and will give to us in the future, we can come together and engage in the three principal aspects of the path, the most precious prayer written by Lama Tsongkhapa, and try to make sense of it. So first thing I want to do, Michael, to save you the role, the job, so you can sit down and take a little holiday. Just going to put that file in the chat. You have the verses because I'm going to be using them on the screen, but just so that you have what you need. Thank you for making me co-host available as well. All right, so the three principal aspects of the path, before we look at going for refuge and making this, you know, a Buddhist practice, then we can incorporate into our refuge Bodhicitta prayer the three principal aspects. And so it sets us up really well for being able to take the entire essence of Sutra and Tantra and into even going for refuge. And so we can begin in that way. So the entire heart of all of the Buddha Dharma is within renunciation, bodhicitta, correct view of emptiness. Okay, and so we can just take a moment just to mentally arrive. We're physically here, but mentally catch up. Being in the present moment by just observing the breath and not giving rise to memories and fantasies of the past and future. And we can see ourselves in the holy presence of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, one with all our teachers, and one with Lama Tsongkhapa himself. And we can begin by first generating a mind of renunciation, this determination to definitely emerge from samsara. And renunciation is related to our own suffering, our own samsara. And so we can just take a moment to think how, since beginning of time, we've been circling, experiencing the sufferings of all 6 realms. And even in the most prized after rebirth, this precious human rebirth, we are primed to suffer in each moment, pervaded by suffering. Nothing is certain. And even with the sprinklings of happiness that we have, the suffering of change, we still remain dissatisfied. Constantly changing, even our bodies, going from high to low within one lifetime, and certainly from upper realms to lower realms. And so as much as possible, try to generate this wish to free oneself from suffering and its causes. Because it doesn't matter wherever we go, while we're in samsara, it's a place of suffering. Whomever we meet is a friend of suffering. And even whatever we enjoy is also an enjoyment of suffering. And unless we generate the 3 principal aspects of the path, it'll be like this endlessly. And then turning the spotlight that, just like me, am experiencing all the suffering, countless other sentient beings are in a similar or far worse situation. In fact, they don't even know why they suffer, or even the remedy for suffering. And so they need our help. They're relying on us. And this is something we can do by generating this great compassion and enhancing it by taking responsibility. Because we are the recipient of all their kindness. In so many ways, we can make that pledge, or take that responsibility to be able to free them from all their suffering and bring them to enlightenment. And by relying on the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, infallible guides, infallible refuge, then we can make sure that we bring about their welfare, free them from suffering forever, and bring them to enlightenment. And we can do this all within the framework of correct view, that the I, who endeavors to take refuge, and totally empty. The enlightenment we're seeking is totally empty. And for the welfare of all sentient beings who are also totally empty. And it's because all phenomena are empty that they can depend and arise. So all is made possible due to emptiness. And so we can look at going for refuge. Having now the three principal aspects being generated in our mental continuum. If you like, we can recite together 3 times as usual, the refuge prayer. And just want to make sure I can see your faces. It's not for some reason. Okay. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay, so I wanted to go on to look at bodhicitta. We raced through renunciation last week. I think Michael felt the racing a little bit then, so apologies for that. And we didn't get to go to discussion questions and so forth. So we might end up shifting things around for the 4th week and see what happens. We might go back to it as well. All right, so what I was going to look at was bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, and basically it's worthwhile looking at, what it is and overcoming misconceptions as we did with renunciation. And so, therefore, I'll go into a bit more detail shortly about that. Then we'll go into what bodhicitta is, and then why we need it. So, and Lama Tsongkhapa addresses this also in the prayer, because he's going through in 14 verses the reason, the method, and the measure, or the purpose of generating these 3 principal aspects, how to go about it, and then the criteria or the measure by which one can know if they've established it. And so why we need it, certainly Lama Tsongkhapa will address there when he looks at the reason for developing bodhicitta. We needed renunciation, remember, because what we want to do is create all our actions as causes for liberation. We've become very excellent at all we do with our body, speech, and mind as creating causes for samsara. But even if we get an upper realm rebirth, it's still not enough. And so therefore, if we can generate a mind of renunciation that is determined to leave behind cyclic existence and go towards liberation, then all of our actions with that motivation, that is our method, we can create causes for liberation. But even more than that, seeing that renunciation alone is not enough, liberating ourselves from cyclic existence, one, is so not enough compared to countless sentient beings who are also experiencing suffering and whom rely on us and on whom we are totally dependent for our body, our clothes, our accommodation, our food, our drink, our healthcare, education. You know, there is not one thing that I think we can name that does not come about in dependence on others. So liberating ourselves would not be enough. And so we need to develop this mind of bodhicitta so that all of our actions, same actions as what we're doing now in our daily life, but all actions qualified, motivated by the mind of enlightenment, and then becoming causes for enlightenment. So this renunciation, the more we are in touch with our own suffering, then to that degree, it becomes possible to generate the mind of great compassion. And we know this from simple examples. So I got quite sick for about 1.5 years with shingles that got misdiagnosed. And it was like, you know, to the head. And wonderful that it wasn't to the eye, because people can actually go blind. So it wasn't diagnosed correctly. So I didn't get the correct medicine that I needed in time within the 72 hours. And I can just remember it was excruciating pain. And I'd never used that adjective before. And not only was it excruciating, but I actually never used this word before either. I was writhing in pain. So having experienced that sort of intense suffering, then naturally within us all arises that compassion for other sentient beings, because we can relate from our own suffering, and we would never want them to go through the same thing we did, particularly if they're vulnerable, like the elderly or the sick, for them to go through what I had to experience, you know, or even the young. So more so the vulnerable, but you know, nevertheless, we wouldn't want anyone to experience the suffering that we go through. And so our renunciation, our self-compassion, when we're in tune with our level of suffering, not just the suffering of pain, like shingles, but the suffering of change, our pleasures, and the pervasive suffering of conditionality, this ticking time bomb. In each moment, we're programmed to experience the suffering of pain or the suffering of change. Wherever we go in cyclic existence, we're going to be pervaded by this suffering. And so the more we are connected and in touch with our own suffering and having the wish to be free of it, self-compassion, renunciation, then we can transfer that spotlight of ourselves and our own suffering over to all sentient beings. And commensurate with that level of renunciation we can develop will be the bodhicitta, and before that, the great compassion we can develop. So we definitely need the mind of renunciation, but on top of that, after that, not before, but after that, we go on to develop the mind of enlightenment. And then with this mind of enlightenment, we're seeking enlightenment, Buddhahood, in our actions, but driven by the causal motivation for the welfare of all sentient beings. There can be no enlightenment just for ourselves alone. So necessarily it's motivated by for the welfare of all sentient beings, which is why His Holiness often gets us to think about that first. For the welfare of all sentient beings, may I achieve enlightenment. So it's for their purpose. It's not for our purpose. It does accomplish our purpose. All of this accomplishes our purpose. Fully realized realizations, full abandonments. But then with enlightenment, we can also, aside from that, enacting our own welfare, we can enact the welfare of others, having this consummate love and compassion and wisdom and ability to know exactly how to benefit sentient beings in each moment, effortlessly, spontaneously, like this. And just to, since we've mentioned two of the, as a brief, summary from previous lesson and so forth, and where we're going, this correct view, this third principal aspect of the path, we've got to have that as well. That's very much needed, not just renunciation, bodhicitta, but whether we're aspiring for liberation or enlightenment, either goal will not be reached unless we have that correct view. So we've got the method renunciation, method bodhicitta, but without the wisdom realizing the lack of inherent existence, neither goal of liberation or enlightenment will be attained. And so, we definitely need that as well. But for us as Mahayanas, we definitely need the renunciation so that we can develop the great compassion, so that we can develop the bodhicitta, so that we can go on to develop the 6 perfections and attain the goal of enlightenment. So without the wisdom realizing emptiness, there's no way we can cut the root of cyclic existence and achieve either goal. So then we'll go on to look at cultivating a continuum of bodhicitta. So we may not already have it, and we might have it at times when we contrive it, but certainly there's things we can do now in our daily life, which will move in the direction of and build upon and strengthen until one day transform that very continuum to the mind of enlightenment. And then we'll look at the verses and unpack Lama Tsongkhapa's 3 principal aspects of the path. So that's my intention, and let's see what happens. All I can have is an intention. I can't offer much more at this particular time. So what bodhicitta is not? Let's overcome some misconceptions. Bodhicitta is not this highly emotional, sentimental state of mind. Okay? It's not overwhelmed by the needs of others. Sometimes we generate compassion and we get overwhelmed, because it's mixed with our self-cherishing and all of this sort of stuff and self-grasping. But this bodhicitta is on the basis of having, the mind that cherishes others, having abandoned self-cherishing. So it doesn't get overwhelmed by suffering sentient beings. And certainly it doesn't become like a depressed, inert mind. It doesn't become upset or paralyzed. It's very much in each moment of body, speech, and mind, any action, any physical action, any thought, any utterance of the speech is solely for the welfare of all sentient beings. Even the very breath. I mean, classic example in our life is Kabje Lama Rinpoche. His very breath, his very presence, everything was done for the welfare of us. Amazing. So precious. And so, so precious, so kind just kept coming to me over the weekend. So precious, so kind. And it sort of helped me stop getting into my self-grasping, self-pity, woe is me, depressed mind, of all the things that we're no longer going to have with the physical body of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But this outer appearance is gone, but every other aspect, his inner being, his body, speech, and mind still pervades. So, this is amazing, so precious, so kind. So with bodhicitta, we're not going to have, when we develop it, any of that self-grasping mind that's manifest and self-cherishing that goes with that self-grasping mind, because we're going to be totally thinking of others and cherishing others. And then we're going to have this correct view and combine it so that we're totally focused on others and their welfare. So we certainly won't have this emotional upset mind that we have when we develop any sort of compassion right now. Certainly it's going to be with the support of wisdom, and therefore we're not talking idiot compassion, So meaning well doesn't cut it, does it? It's a good start, but it doesn't cut it, because very quickly with meaning well, it can very much go wrong because we don't have that wisdom to accompany our compassion. And, not really knowing how to help, we can actually harm. So that's what it's not. So bodhicitta then, well, what is it? In short, it's that which is the 2 aspirations. So that's what we need to remember. What's bodhicitta? That which is the 2 aspirations. So what are those 2 aspirations? For the welfare of all sentient beings, for their sake. That's the causal motivation, for the welfare of all sentient beings. I will attain enlightenment. There's your two aspirations. So it's worth remembering, in short, what is it? That which is the two aspirations. Okay, so it is this fully opened, hearted mind that is totally dedicated, the most healthiest mind we can have, totally dedicated to the welfare of all sentient beings and bringing about their welfare and putting our own needs last. But then we as beginners can go, oh, but then what about my happiness? Okay, but as a default, as a default, same with Buddhahood, as a default, our welfare is taken care of by focusing on others, by achieving enlightenment, by being able to enact their welfare. So that mind, that sort of, oh, what about me? That comes up for us because we've got that self-grasping, self-cherishing. It needs to, and it's fighting, like, what about me? Because it's getting, some antidotes thrown at it. So it's like fighting for its recognition again. So we can allay any concern about that whatever we practice with Dharma, when we're focused on others and the benefiting others, automatically as a default, our happiness is taken care of. So we need not worry. So that's what it is in essence, without going into great detail of a Mahayana main mind, this big long definition that's the entry to the Mahayana path of accumulation. And it's not just that one mind, because it continues along all the paths, all the way through to Buddhahood. And, it's focused on for the welfare of all sentient beings to attain enlightenment. We don't need this big, long, wordy definition. Maybe when we go into the basic program, we'll learn those sort of things and memorize them, and master's program. But for now, in essence, that which is the two aspirations. All right, so why do we need bodhicitta? Well, we need it because we are the recipients of every single sentient being's kindness. And so, of course, when someone gives us some simple kindness in this life, naturally, because we're good-hearted people, we have bodhicitta, we have Buddha nature. So naturally we have this good-heartedness. And when someone gives us something, we naturally rise up to want to repay their kindness, So in the same way, when we become aware of the kindness, every single kindness of sentient beings is all around us. When we become aware of that, naturally, we want to grow that not just have that natural wish, but grow it through familiarization, grow it through habituation, through meditation, to actually wish to repay their kindness. And the best way isn't just to do something kind in this lifetime. Of course, as a default, naturally we do that. Naturally, we bring benefit to as many sentient beings on a daily basis. But as a default, because we don't want to just bring them the happiness of this life, happiness of future lives, liberation, mere liberation, we want to bring them consummate happiness. We want to bring them to enlightenment. And by wanting to bring them to enlightenment, naturally, all the other things will fall into place as well. So we also need this mind of enlightenment, because if we are just blissing out in this, meditative equipoise on emptiness, that is the nirvana, then we're not able to enact the welfare of sentient beings. And it's just a pit stop. And inevitably, after some time, Buddhas will tap us on the shoulders and say, oi, more work to be done. And we're going to have to then enter from the beginning the Mahayana path of accumulation once we've developed great compassion and bodhicitta and so forth, and then traverse the stages of the path. But then when we go into meditate on emptiness, because we're habituated with abiding in that meditative equipoise of our liberation, we're going to waste time and through our habit, get lost in that meditation and spend time in it where we're not coming out into subsequent attainment to benefit others through those means. And so we definitely don't want to be in samsara, but we definitely don't want to be in the mere bliss of liberation as well. So we definitely need this mind of enlightenment. All right, so hopefully some of that is making sense as a brief introduction. Basically, if we don't have bodhicitta, then naturally we're not going to have an antidote to our self-cherishing, and it's going to get stronger and increase. We're going to be more self-absorbed, more self-focused. And when we're self-absorbed, self-focused, very selfish, even just in a conventional way, we isolate others. And we become our own worst enemy because of due to isolating from others. What we're often needing is connection. But, we become so stuck in our own self-cherishing. And with that self-cherishing, then we give rise to, along with its evil twin self-grasping, we give rise to afflictions, negative karma, suffering, and so forth. So without bodhicitta, we're not going to have our actions of body, speech, and mind, directed as causes to enlightenment. Without bodhicitta, we're not going to be able to abandon knowledge obscurations, like the imprints of the afflictions that throw up all the mistaken appearances we have of things appearing to exist inherently, independently from their own side, as if they were findable when searched amongst the object, So the appearances of true existence and so forth, these come through our ignorance and other things as well, make up knowledge obscurations. So without this bodhicitta, that could you try again? Siri doesn't get what bodhicitta is. I can't help her right now. So without bodhicitta, that's conjoined to this wisdom, non-conceptually realizing emptiness, we won't be able to abandon knowledge obscurations. We need the power of these two coming together, the wisdom realizing emptiness on that support of bodhicitta. Then we can abandon all that's to be abandoned. So you can see how this bodhicitta is like supremely important for us to even enter the Mahayana path of accumulation, to go through that and develop, the special insight and karma binding and all of these things that we want to develop the path of preparation, so forth, this non-conceptual, this ultimate bodhicitta, non-conceptual realization of emptiness, ultimate bodhicitta, and so forth. So even for us now, without bodhicitta, whatever we do doesn't become Mahayana Dharma. So we can, the mouth can, the lips can, we say we're Mahayanas, but our heart is not going to be Mahayanas unless we develop that bodhicitta motivation first thing when we wake. Every action of my body, speech, and mind may be directed towards the welfare of all sentient beings, to free them from suffering, to bring them not only happiness of this life, future lives, liberation, but bring them to enlightenment. Something along those lines. There's many prayers we can access. But as soon as we wake, even while we're in bed, and then before we go to sleep at night, thinking that, may I actualize the clear light Dharmakaya in our sleep and arise, as the deity for the welfare of all sentient beings, to bring them to enlightenment. May all sentient beings actualize this clear light mind, whatever we do, so that even our sleep for the next 6, 7, 8 hours, 8 if we're lucky, whoa, that'd be a leisure. But, however long we have, that even our sleep can become a cause for enlightenment. So it's utterly precious. And also this is just even from a, mainly a sutra perspective, but even from Tantra perspective, we need these 3 principal aspects, renunciation, bodhicitta, correct view, as prerequisites before we even qualified to think about entering the tantric vehicle. Okay? So hopefully that's enough to prompt us. Now, so I've just started to go on to what we can do right now. And I started with like a bodhicitta motivation, as soon as we wake. And then at the end of the day, they can be our bookends. But even just in our daily life now, as much as possible, trying to guard against self-cherishing. Trying to guard against that selfish mind. The self-cherishing mind holds ourself as more important than others, and it tries to get for us anything that we want at the expense of others. It sees ourselves as more important and has this disregard to others' aspect as well. So the more we can guard against that self-centered mind coming into play, then, you know, the more we're going to be able to guard against, you know, even the attachment and the other deluded minds arising. And, you know, at the moment when we have problems, we're really quite good just innately at blaming others. But really, if we can, Venerable Roger was so awesome one day. Something was happening, I think it was in Singapore, and he kind of like grabbed at his you know, his donker was visible, this here, and he's like, give it to the self-cherishing. You know, it was like whatever was coming his way, give it to the self-cherishing mind. He was so pure in his practice, because instead of getting frustrated or irritated with somebody or something like this, he was giving it to the self-cherishing mind, which was the cause of, you know, him experiencing that in that moment. And it was really just beautiful to witness, you know, his purity of practice. So if we can drive all blames into one, the self-cherishing, then, you know, that's going to help us. I didn't say drive it into ourself, the person, right? Because then we're going to go, oh, you know, I'm such a bad person, I'm so terrible. And we're going to fall into this, you know, heap of inertia and, you know, depression and anxiety and all of these things that we're quite good at cultivating. So separating the person from the mind and separating the moment of mind and the types of mind, we're giving it to that selfish mind. We're not giving it to all of our minds. We're giving it to the selfish mind. Give it to the self-cherishing. So if we can try to be as fluid and immediate, you know, habituated in our practice, even like Venerable Roger, then, you know, that's going to be of benefit to us. So instead of driving all blames into one, you who annoy me, or I'm not pointing to you guys, I'm pointing over there, but there's no one there right now I can see, but drive it into this one mind. Okay, so on a daily basis, you know, the more we can try to cherish others, you know, think of others, care for others, have concern for others, reach out to others, you know, all of these sorts of things, then it's going to chip away at that selfish mind. Now, we do have a good heart, because I know some of you people already, right? So I know some of you personally I've met, and some I've met over the last, say, 12 weeks. And some I'm yet to really know, but I can infer that we all have a good heart. And we all do practice kindness and compassion and love and care and non-harmfulness. Many of us might live in ethics, in vows. Okay? So all of these wonderful qualities we already have, if we can rejoice that we have them, that's going to strengthen them and build them up. It's not becoming arrogant, but if we rejoice in our own qualities, that's going to help to grow these minds that we already have. Further to that, we want to put them into practice and cultivate them through meditation. So as an expression of our very Buddha nature, we have all of these amazing qualities that are quite, have surfaced for us in this life, this love and compassion and so forth. And as Dhammakirti has taught us in Pramanavartika, valid cognition, that when he's proving that enlightenment is possible, he's taught there how, you know, we've had beginningless lives where sentient beings have been our mother, our father, our brother, our sister, our loved one, and our relatives and so forth. So in all of our beginningless lives, we have had love and compassion for each of these friends and relatives and so forth. And we've had that many times, have each sentient being played those roles. So we have this seed of love and compassion and everything already. But what we don't have is what the Bodhisattva has, which is through habituation, has cultivated these seeds so that they sprout. And how the Bodhisattva does it We have love and compassion for every single sentient being, but it's not been simultaneously. All sentient beings simultaneously, may they have this happiness, may they be free of suffering, may I bring them to enlightenment. We've had love for one and another, and maybe in this life alone, we've got love for, let's say, at least 20, 30 people, maybe more. And in our previous life, we've had love for maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 people as well. And the previous life and so forth, and beginningless lives. So we've been able to love all sentient beings, but it's been at different times. The Bodhisattva is cultivating this within one mind, all sentient beings simultaneously. You see the difference? So we've got those seeds there, but we need to cultivate them. We need to water them with our practice, with our good minds, so that they do sprout into this bodhicitta mind. And from there, go on and take fruit into the state of the mind of enlightenment of a Buddha. So it's worth having this self-respect, this self-confidence that is aware of our good qualities and grows these good qualities on a daily basis through rejoicing, acknowledging our qualities, through trying to strengthen them as well by continuing to act in these positive ways of cherishing others. And then even more than that, doing meditations on developing, the good heart even further. And one of the most precious meditations that you are probably very aware of, or you can look up, is the Tonglen meditation. And that's available anywhere, anytime, sitting on a bus, going to work, visiting somebody, seeing signs of distress on the streets, watching the news. There is never a time, basically, when Tonglen is not utterly precious to practice. So whatever we can do on a daily basis, I think there is a lot we can do here and now. And excuse me, I should have a drink just to preserve my throat. Good idea, Shayla. So yeah, the other thing I was thinking of was when problems arise, we can use bodhicitta. We can use bodhicitta to even transform those problems that we're experiencing. So when problems come at us, then with the mind of bodhicitta, try to transform them. So, for instance, whatever we're experiencing, we're not the only one going through this problem, this illness, this anxiety, this fear, depression, whatever's going on, this, being criticized or abused or disrespected, whatever is happening, we're not the only one experiencing that. So instead of collapsing into the pain, the suffering, then we can try to come out of it, bounce out of it by bringing in bodhicitta quickly to transform it. And the simplest thinking, we're not the only one. In fact, there are many beings experiencing this very problem right now. And this is where Tonglen can be wonderful, right? To experience the problem on behalf of all sentient beings so that they don't need to. Give them your good qualities and resources and merits and so forth. So I'm not the only one. Many are experiencing this problem. Not only that, but there are countless sentient beings who actually have it far worse. When we put our problem into perspective, it can help to diminish the perception of our problem. And also, when we think of countless other sentient beings, we're in a pitiful state, but by comparison, them even more so. They don't have the Dharma. They don't have refuge. They don't know why they suffer. They don't know the causes of why they're suffering, karma and afflictions. They don't know the cure, the remedy, how to get rid of 8 worldly concerns, which stops renunciation. how to get rid of self-cherishing, which stops bodhicitta, how to get rid of self-grasping, which stops the correct view. They don't know how to get rid of these things. They don't know how to develop true paths to bring about true cessations. And you can be sure that most sentient beings, not just the 8 billion humans, them too, but animals and so forth, particularly those in the lower realms, in a heartbeat, if given the opportunity and if it was possible, would trade their life for our life, with not just this moment of the problem, however long it's going on, a day, a week, a moment if someone abused us, or a lifetime of struggle, they would trade in an instant to have a lifetime of that one problem we're experiencing. So we can use bodhicitta in our daily life, even in a way of transforming problems. Okay, so these are just some random ideas. All right, so what we should do is have a look at the verses. But before we go to that section, is there anything that you would like to bring up, or any questions or comments you have? Anything, maybe I'm boring you and you need to wake up a little bit by sharing, because I can tend to go blah, blah, blah. Any questions or comments? Is everyone okay?
I'll comment, and I'm definitely not bored. I got to tell you that. Okay.
Okay.
I put the thumbs up sign because I would be nodding if you could see me.
I can't see you. Yeah, I'm looking for you, but I can't see you. Your voice is familiar, though.
Yeah, I'm kind of
What's your
talk a lot.
name? What's your
Jay
name?
West.
Jay. Oh, yeah. I want to be able to see your face. I'd love it if you could send a photo to my.
I sent a photo to Michael to send on to you.
Oh, if that could happen, because I know you've been around, Jay, and I would
Yeah,
like to appreciate you more by seeing your face and feel that stronger connection with you.
Sure.
But please, in the meantime.
And Jay, I received it, and forgive me, I did not forward it on to Venerable Pema.
Okay.
Could you do that, Michael?
I will do that.
Thank you so kindly.
And look, I'm a big communicator. If you wanted a biography, I can send that to you as well.
I just want to feel closer to you by actually seeing your face. That's the main thing.
Thank you.
Then I would feel I have a stronger connection with you. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you for your kindness.
Okay, so what my comment was yes, I wanted to enthusiastically talk about Tan Lin because I have found it so helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, because yes, you're right. I read the news and I get overwhelmed, and I can get into a very dark place when I hear bad things. But if I just sort of, I would term it, kind of reframe the situation by, okay, I'm looking at this. It's suffering, it's horrible, it's ghastly, it seems like it's never going to end. So breathing that in and then breathing out healing or good vibrations, whatever you want to call it.
Everything that's needed right then and there
is very therapeutic for me, quite frankly. And hopefully, it does some good. And I think of Rumi's quote, the poet, which was, because it applies to me. When I was younger, I wanted to change the world. I was involved in social action. Sure. And now that I'm older, I want to change myself. And that sustains me in feeling rather helpless about being able to change anything in the world. Yeah. So Tonglen is, yes, I want to just sort of put in a plug for that.
Thank you so much. That is really very wonderful. And I fully, wholeheartedly concur with everything you say. And that reframing is really precious because, when we're falling in the heap, it is when we need to refrain, because in it is the self-grasping, self-cherishing mind that's consumed with our own suffering at that time. It really impacts us. And even with Rinpoche's passing, I could really see that every time I was kind of like, tormented. And my mum passed 8 months ago, right? So I think some of you are familiar with that. And, sometimes I do this wailing sort of sound out of helplessness, or, it might just be a releasing the energy within the body. But when I was doing that recently, these loud sighs or whatever you want to call it, in response to Rinpoche, when I bring the awareness, then I can also see that it's actually focused on me then and not others. So when we see whatever suffering in the world or in our own suffering, we're focused momentarily on others to see that, but then very quickly we turn it to ourselves, and it's almost like we can collapse it on ourselves in an unskillful way, and then needing very desperately to reframe it so that we can become active in the world through having worked on ourselves and knowing how to help others. We can, through this Tonglen that you're suggesting and so forth, really bring about that change so that we're not, inert and paralyzed and so forth, but actually doing something beneficial. And by you sending all that energy out there, that is going out into the world, and may it reach the beings directly. It could well do, because of our interconnectedness, So we might think that maybe it doesn't have effect on other, but perhaps it does. Many times there's that synchronicity. You're thinking of someone and they call you, You're both, my friend and I, he was in America, I was here. He's Australian, but he was on holiday. Even with the time difference, at the same time, we were texting each other, just that synchronicity of life, that interconnectedness. So perhaps even with our Tonglen practice, perhaps they are receiving what we're sending out. Certainly it's training our mind to be able to do that effortlessly, spontaneously, as we traverse the path and become a Buddha. And so with that reframing, it takes the focus off oneself. And so we rise up. We don't collapse down into suffering and misery. And so, yeah, thank you for giving it a plug. Do I say your name correctly when I say it's Jai, or is it Jay?
It's Jay. Yeah.
Jay. Okay, Jay. Thank you so kindly. Erin, I believe you'd like to share something with us.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. When I'm honest with myself, I find I get my self-confidence feels shaky when I think of Bodhicitta.
Yeah.
Because it feels so big and important.
Yeah.
And so valuable. And I think too, I've just struggled in my life in the past before I was Buddhist with like low self-esteem and depression, victim, blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So I just heard, I think a few things that I could start practicing more would be rejoicing in qualities of myself and others.
That you already have. Yeah, you have it. I know you, Erin.
Nice.
As in, we've met. I know you in person. So you definitely have all these amazing qualities, because I know this to be true personally in relation to you. So definitely rejoicing in those qualities that you have of your love and care and kindness and all of those things. That will strengthen what you have. It will strengthen those minds. Yeah, what else did you think?
The other one I wrote down was grow positive minds and then cultivate them in meditation.
Yeah.
So would that also be Tonglen could be used for that?
Tonglen is so wonderful. Excuse me. It's Tonglen is, Tonglen, right? You know that practice. So it's cultivating love and compassion. And, you can even start with yourself, cultivating love and compassion with yourself, and then go out to others and doing it, for a friend, enemy, stranger, and then all sentient beings. And, there's various texts that you can look at for the practice itself to go how to do it. But yes, any of those things that you can rejoice to strengthen, and then go the next step further and cultivating them through meditation, following, guided meditations or meditations in text, and then even going out on your own and just, doing your own meditation. Because right now we've got ordinary love and ordinary compassion, but we don't have great love and great compassion. So we do have love, but it's mixed with attachment right now. Okay. And the love we have is limited to a few beings in our life, not all sentient beings. And that love that we have that's mixed with our attachment, it's actually really quite dependent on how people treat us. So some people on their, declare their love till eternity or something on a wedding day, but then things go wrong, right? and then they end up falling out with their partner, separating, divorcing, and in some sad cases, even hating, you know? So that love that we have, it's mixed with attachment, is dependent right now on how others treat us and respond to us. And also, what else? Well, they're the main things anyway. So the great love and the great compassion is without those. It's without the attachment. It's not limited. It's encompassing all sentient beings, regardless of how they treat us. This is the beautiful thing. Love that we have now is when someone, you know, does right by us as well, you know. Quite often it is conditional. Quite often, not always. A mother's love would be unconditional, but there still can be exceptions there. But, you know, with this great love, great compassion, bodhicitta, it's regardless of how sentient beings treat us. In fact, even if they treat us worse than someone else, we might actually have greater love and compassion for them. So it's utterly priceless and utterly precious, and extended to all. And it's built on wisdom and reasoning, and some of the best reasoning is, you know, just like me, all sentient beings want happiness. Just like me, all sentient beings want to be free of suffering. And so using that is a really stable reasoning. I've only come to appreciate this recently, because some of the compassion I had for somebody wasn't stable. It was there for a couple of years, so it was still going in a good direction. But then, you know, I lost some of that compassion for this person when they reared up and, you know, behaved in a way that really wasn't very kind. And because my compassion was unstable, it diminished. And so I had to try to build it up, and so forth, work in progress. But this Bodhisattva's love is very stable, and because it's got that stable, reasoned foundation of all sentient beings want happiness and freedom from suffering. And, you know, therefore, may I take that responsibility and bring it about. So, yeah, I was really grateful for that teaching. So hopefully that answers a little bit further the question, Erin, but keep going. And also remember your Buddha nature and use that as a meditation, and also your precious human rebirth. You have a precious human rebirth, which is a result because you've created the cause, ethics. From ethics come, you know, higher rebirths. But on top of that, Erin, you enjoy resources of living in a country where you have access to food and medicine, although I'm not sure if you have access to medicine in America without, you know, giving an arm or a kidney to get it. Because in Australia, we have free medicine. So I always wish you guys had our healthcare system. But, you know, you still have access to, you know, food and medicines and, you know, shelter and love and all of these things. And all of this has come about because you have practiced the 6 perfections in the past. From generosity, you've got resources. From patience, you've got beauty and all of these things. Okay, so there's another meditation you can do, and we can all do to strengthen, you know, coming to appreciate ourselves more. So Buddha nature, precious human rebirth, and, you know, this great love, great compassion, and so forth. Okay. And just be kind to yourself. Like I have a lot of insecurities as well. And, you know, I'm never sure if, you know, what I do is good enough or beneficial or anything like this, you know. So insecurity in numerology, that whole line is missing for me. So of course I've got these insecurities, but trying to just be enough within myself that, you know, even if it isn't helpful for others, my intention is to be helpful. And so may that be enough in itself, you know. So try to nurture ourselves, try to be, you know, now without my mum as my #1 fan, I've got to be my own #1 fan. So not in an arrogant, prideful way. We don't want that. But, you know, just we have to encourage ourselves. We have to nurture ourselves. We have to support ourselves. We have to be so kind and gentle with ourselves. And then through that practice, it becomes so much easier to do it genuinely, purely, not for any want in return, to do that for others, not to please them in a, you know, worldly way, or just to get a good reputation or to get praise or any of these worldly concerns, but just more purely. When we can give it to ourselves, then we can more easily give it to others. So I think we have to, with Rinpoche's passing, that was another thought that came to mind. Oh, it's like, oh, we've all got to grow up. You know, it's like our fathers, you know, mother, all these things has his physical body's left, and it's time to stand on our own 2 feet in some ways, you know. So but that's not entirely true, because, you know, Rinpoche's outer layer is gone. You know, that was the sense I got from this particular dream, that the outer layer is gone, but the inner layer, the core, is still there and accessible. And, you know, he's with us at all times, even now. So let's go have a look at the verses before we run out of time, and see how we go. So let's have a look. I'll just go into screen share again. Now let's see, what did we get up to here? Oh yeah, so we're looking at Bodhicitta. And if it's okay with you, I'd like to indulge us in reading the verses from the beginning. So if that's okay, just because would that be all right? Yeah, just because then it's a complete practice. We get all the, you know, the seeds of the path to enlightenment complete in one sesh. All right. So remember, we had Guru Shakyamuni Buddha in front of us when we went for refuge, inseparable from Lamas of Rinpoche and all our gurus, inseparable from Lama Tsongkhapa. So we can imagine that Lama Tsongkhapa is that main aspect now. And we can imagine being in the presence of Lama Tsongkhapa, who wrote these verses for me. Think like that, for me. You know, you're accessing these verses, right? So you are the recipient of Lama Tsongkhapa's wisdom, and his all-knowing mind would have known directly how to help us individually. So we can, you know, bring to mind Lama Tsongkhapa. We can even, you know, recall. Actually, we might go straight to the verses now. Okay, so we can recite together if you like. I bow down to my perfect gurus, the essential meaning of the victorious one's teachings, the path praised by all the holy victors and their children, the gateway of the fortunate ones desiring liberation. This I shall try to explain as much as I can. Those who are not attached to the pleasures of circling, who strive to make freedoms and endowments meaningful, who entrust themselves to the path pleasing the victorious ones, you fortunate ones, listen with a calm mind. Without the complete intention definitely to be free from circling, there is no way to pacify attachment seeking pleasurable effects in the ocean of circling. Also, by craving for cyclic existence, embodied beings are continuously bound. Therefore, at the very beginning, seek renunciation. Freedoms and endowments are difficult to find, and life has no time to spare. By gaining familiarity with this, attraction to the appearances of this life is reversed. By thinking over and over again that actions and their effects are unbetraying, and repeatedly contemplating the miseries of cyclic existence, attraction to the appearances of future lives is reversed. When, by having trained in that way, there is no arising, even for a second, of attraction to the perfections of cyclic existence, and all day and night the intention seeking liberation arises, the thought of renunciation has been generated. So this, in each moment, thinking of liberation and not being attracted by the 8 worldly concerns of, you know, like good reputation, praise, gain, happiness, and all this, and, you know, having aversion to, you know, loss and disrepute and, you know, criticism and things when things go wrong and we get, you know, frustrated and unhappy and so forth, not being with craving and attachment to any of these gains or losses and so forth. So let's go to the Bodhicitta verses next. And before we do, we can just, recall that Lama Tsongkhapa is with us. And we can even recite his name mantra. Om A Guru Vajradhara Samati Keti Siddhi Hum Hum. Om A Guru Vajradhara Samati Keti Siddhi Hum Hum. Om A Guru Vajradhara Samati Keti Siddhi Hum Hum. And we can imagine purifying white light and nectar coming from Lama Tsongkhapa's heart directly to ours. And it can be purifying all of the hindrances that we have to generating the three principal aspects in general: 8 worldly concerns, self-cherishing, self-grasping. Lama Tsongkhapa can purify also with rays of white light and nectar any hindrances we have in particular to generating bodhicitta. So any self-preoccupation, self-absorption, that narrowed mind thinking of oneself, excluding others. Purifying our low self-esteem, self-doubt, insecurities that might think that this is not possible for me, it's too vast. Banish with the white nectar and light, banish these unhelpful, incorrect thoughts. And purify any partiality we have so that we can cultivate the mind of equanimity, great equanimity. Purify holding beings as friends, enemies, strangers. And purify the seeds of our ordinary love and compassion that purify the part that's mixed with the attachment, or where it's reserved for just a few, dependent on how they treat us. Purify those aspects that will not make it pure. And then Lama Tsongkhapa can send forth golden rays of light and nectar to bestow blessings for us to make sense and even realize through putting into practice these verses. Miming our mind. And so let's look together at the verses on Bodhicitta. Verse 6. Lama Tsongkhapa has written for us here the purpose or the reason, the importance of why we need to cultivate bodhicitta. He says, even if renunciation has been developed, if it is not possessed by the mind of enlightenment, it does not become the cause of the perfect bliss of unsurpassed enlightenment. Therefore, the wise generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So the wise, the bodhisattvas, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment because they see that renunciation alone is not enough. So renunciation alone, which does act as a cause to free us from samsara and bring us to liberation, but it's not enough for the bodhisattva who wants to do that for countless sentient beings, to free them from suffering and bring them to enlightenment. And so the bodhisattva, recognizing that even if we attain liberation, we cannot fully enact our own welfare. We haven't fully abandoned all that is to be abandoned, and we haven't fully realized all that is to be realized. So it's very partial. We haven't accomplished even our own welfare. And certainly the bodhisattva, the wise one, wants to accomplish the welfare of all sentient beings as well. And through that, as a byproduct, will accomplish their own welfare. So this is the importance of generating bodhicitta, that the bodhisattva, before becoming a bodhisattva, before having that bodhicitta that makes them a bodhisattva, this great being is going to have an understanding of emptiness first, to see that liberation and enlightenment is actually possible. So even with this renunciation, they're going to, probably even before that, maybe have this understanding, correct understanding of emptiness, not a perceptual, but just a correct understanding, because you're not going to strive for renunciation unless you realize that liberation is possible. So you're not going to strive for bodhicitta, mind of enlightenment, for enlightenment, the goal, unless you realize that enlightenment is possible. So this is definitely for sharp faculty beings, but also Jetsumpa talks about, even for the dull faculty beings, many of them have a correct view of emptiness, even prior to generating bodhicitta. So renunciation, I've mentioned that one already, is not enough, doesn't even fulfill our own welfare, and certainly makes no attempt to fulfill the welfare of all sentient beings. So shifting that spotlight that focuses on our own suffering to the suffering of all sentient beings, generating from renunciation great compassion, from great compassion going on even further to develop this mind of enlightenment, where every action of our body, speech, and mind, when it is together with this mind of enlightenment, contrived, or in this case, uncontrived, everything is directed to enlightenment, whether we're sitting, sleeping, walking, talking, engaged in teachings, helping someone, a loved one, it's all directed to enlightenment. Amazing. So what have I got here? Without renunciation, it is not possible to generate bodhicitta. Does that make sense for you guys? Without having that self-compassion that wants to be free from one's own suffering, it's not actually possible to generate the great compassion or bodhicitta that wishes to free all sentient beings from suffering. The mode of apprehension is the same for renunciation or bodhicitta, or for great compassion, I should say, for renunciation and great compassion. The mode of apprehension is, wishing to be free of suffering, or wishing to be free of suffering and its causes, anything like that. But what's different is the spotlight, the focal object. Are we focusing on our own suffering, or are you focusing on all sentient beings? Either way, renunciation or great compassion, what we're wanting to do is free them from suffering, with a wish to free them from suffering. That's the what the mind's doing at that time. So what did I say? It's not possible to generate bodhicitta if cannot find own samsaric suffering, this third type of suffering, right? Not just suffering of pain, also suffering of change, but not just that. Uniquely Buddhist is this pervasive suffering of conditionality, finding that unbearable for ourselves, and then also for all sentient beings, to find their suffering completely unbearable. So then how do we go on to develop bodhicitta? Lama Tsongkhapa has given us here the actual method. He's alluded to it. He hasn't spelt it out in great detail, the actual types of methods, but he said in verse here, swept away by the current of the four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma, so hard to undo, caught in the iron net of self-grasping, completely enveloped by the total darkness of ignorance, endlessly reborn in cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three sufferings. So he's giving us the flavor of how we go about generating bodhicitta. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he referred us to this verse when we looked at renunciation, because he said we can use this verse in relation to ourselves. Do you remember we did this verse? Yeah, we changed it slightly to refer to ourselves in our own suffering. And so by that we can develop renunciation. But here in this context, this verse is to develop bodhicitta. So relating the suffering of all sentient beings as being swept away by the four powerful rivers. So I'll go down to the next point. This desire, existence, ignorance, wrong views, these are causes by which, this desirous attachment, this craving and desire we have, that we perpetuate our cycle in another samsara, so, by the causal aspect, or even the more easily, more commonly taught, the result side of the four powerful rivers is, sentient beings, just like me, have to undergo uncontrolled birth, sickness, aging, and death because they're under the control of karma and afflictions. So swept away by these four powerful rivers, tied by the tight bonds of karma. Karma is such a powerful force. It's like a really strong rip that takes you further out into cyclic existence. I don't know if you guys have come under really strong karma before, but it's almost like you lose yourself. Things you wouldn't normally do when you're under the power of strong karma, you're totally swept out by its force. And it can be so strong to stop. And so if it's this incredibly powerful rip, there's no swimming across that's going to be able to get you out of that rip. You're swept away by it. You're in the tight bonds of karma, but not only swept away by the four powerful rivers and caught in this, giant rip of karma or something like that, but you're also like chained and bound as well, not just bound by karma, but you're chained up, but with this self-grasping ignorance and grasping at oneself and all phenomena. So grasping at a self of persons, grasping at a self of phenomena to exist inherently. So grasping at the body, the five aggregates, the body and the mind, as a summary, the five aggregates, grasping at the self to exist independently, unrelatedly to its basis of designation and, the body and mind, and to causes and conditions and the various parts, various moments of mind, various types of minds. So seeing it as if it's independent of all of that, as if it's a findable part, So if you had all your parts and all your minds and moments of minds, if you searched within that basis of designation, as if you would be able to find the part that is the self that exists in that independent way, as if it's an independent piece from all of these other parts. Okay. So mindful of the time. So on the basis of self-grasping, we generate afflictions like attachment, aversion. From that, we generate action, body, speech, and mind. And we create from that these contaminated afflictions and karma, these true origins. We create true suffering, which is like rebirth in cyclic existence, where we're primed to experience the three sufferings at any moment. Okay. So how to generate the mind of enlightenment? This is more to that verse 8. So adding in the extra 2 lines, but we'll read the entirety of the verse. Endlessly reborn in cyclic existence, ceaselessly tormented by the three sufferings, thinking that all mothers are in such a condition, generate the supreme mind of enlightenment. So here, what we're looking at is this all mothers. Lama Tsongkhapa is alluding to an actual method from the two main methods. He's alluding to, all sentient beings have been our mothers, the first part. So the sevenfold cause and effect method. And if we had more time, I would jump to the sevenfold cause and effect method so that we can see how that comes about. But I think you guys would know that, because this is like a fairly much an intermediate group. So, you've already got the basics or the resources available to jump and look and go, oh yeah, all sentient beings have been my mothers. They've been so kind, and naturally I want to repay their kindness. And, all this is on the basis of equanimity first, to have that level playing field, that level mind, where our love and compassion we go on to develop won't be tainted by its impurity of being biased towards some and not having regard for others, or even aversion. So the other method is equalizing, exchanging self for others, and that is just priceless. So worth investigating either of those two methods. Or Lama Tsongkhapa, beautifully, Pabonka Rinpoche made a prayer or something to do with meeting Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, and it mentions something about how he was the one, so wanting to meet his teachings, for he was the one that brought about this 11-fold method, combining the sevenfold and the equalizing, exchanging self. So there's something, I don't remember it exactly, but I can remember in bits that Pabonka Rinpoche made this special prayer to Lama Tsongkhapa to always meet his teachings. And yeah, one of them was because of this 11-fold method being so precious. All right, because time is poor, moving on. Verse 5, now we also may have had a look at this verse. We definitely did, because I've crossed out the word renunciation and I've added in the word bodhicitta. So I've modified verse 5 here. And this is the measure or criteria we saw previously when we looked at the renunciation, the verses in green. So it said, when by having trained in that way, there is no arising even for a second, not even for 1 second. It went on to say the attraction of the perfections of cyclic existence, and all day and night seeking the intention of seeking liberation, then the thought of renunciation has been generated. But His Holiness has said that we can even use this verse, changing it, modifying it, to give us the measure of having generated bodhicitta. So what he's saying there is we can basically infer the measure, the criteria for having generated renunciation here. We can change it and infer whether we've achieved bodhicitta. So in short, when the altruistic wish for enlightenment has become the motivating force behind all our actions of body, speech, and mind. So without any self-cherishing and things like that arising even for a second, and we all day and night, we have this strong intention, that which is the two aspirations, to seek enlightenment for the welfare of all sentient beings. And it becomes that driving force in all of our actions. So then we have realized bodhicitta. Then, through the habituation of our practice, our love and great compassion and all of these things, then when it spontaneously arises as this in each moment, without having to generate reasonings and having to generate it, it's just always there, then we have the measure of having generated bodhicitta. Now, the bodhicitta verses, this is interesting. It arises spontaneously whenever we hear, see, or think about any sentient being. So yeah, soon as a sentient being becomes on our radar mentally, or we visually see them and so forth, just in seeing or thinking about a sentient being or hearing about a sentient being, then we have this spontaneous, uncontrived bodhicitta. So precious and powerful. You've probably seen the added verse for coming from Prabhupada Rinpoche's outlines that Kabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche has added. So I won't do that today because of being time poor. And as far as the discussions and stuff, I'm thinking this prayer, the verses on correct view are so complicated. And I've even studied Madhyamaka twice, like 2 years one time, another year, like about 2 years another time. And whatever I've studied, it's so hard to make sense of. And I haven't had any specific teachings that have unpacked every single verse, because even the lamas are skipping over some of these verses. So I think I would like, if I could, to reach us more where we're at, and maybe some of these group discussions that I've skipped for renunciation and bodhicitta, I would like for us to do them. And maybe we spend 1 week on correct view and not 2 weeks on it. And we can bring in more time for the discussion around renunciation, bodhicitta, and correct view. So with your permission, I would seek to do that. Does that sound okay? Okay, cool. Because then I think it might hit where we're more at. So we'll also, just because of time poor, and we'll skip it till the following week. Michael, with your permission, are we allowed to go over 5 minutes if I need?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because I'd like to do Rinpoche's swiftly, the prayer to swiftly him return and things like that. So therefore, since I'm going to skip these things, then what I'll do is go straight to the remaining verses. And let's just finish the verses. These ones are the correct view. Without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation in the mind of enlightenment, you cannot cut the root cause of circling. Therefore, attempt the method to realize dependent arising. One who sees the cause and effect of all phenomena, of both cyclic existence and the state beyond sorrow as forever unbetraying, and for whom any object trusted in by the grasping mind has completely disappeared, has at that time entered the path pleasing the Buddhas. If the appearance that is unbetraying dependent relation is accepted separately from emptiness, as long as these two understandings are seen as separate, then one has still not realized the Buddha's intent. If these two realizations are happening simultaneously without alternation, and from merely seeing dependent relation as completely unbetraying, the definite ascertainment comes that completely destroys the way all objects are apprehended as truly existent. At that time, the analysis of the ultimate view is complete. Furthermore, appearance eliminates the extreme of existence, and emptiness eliminates the extreme of non-existence. If you realize how emptiness manifests in the manner of cause and effect, then you will not be captivated by wrong notions holding extreme views. In this way, you realize exactly the vital points of the three principal aspects of the path. Resort to seeking solitude, generate the power of effort, and quickly accomplish your final goal, my child. So then we've got Lama Tsongkhapa in front of us. We can imagine, therefore, that he joyously dissolves into us, becoming firm and stable at our heart, and granting all the blessings, the inspiration, perhaps to recite daily if you're so inclined, and to reflect on the meaning. And actualize the very intention of Lama Tsongkhapa. We can make stable through his name mantra. Om A Guru Vajradhara Samati Kati Siddhi Hum Hum. Om Aguru Vajradhara Samati Gati Siddhi Hum Hum. Om Aguru Vajradhara Samati Gati Siddhi Hum Hum. And then let's go to the dedication and long life prayers. We'll just do the first two of these. May the precious supreme Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then this prayer written for the swift return by His Holiness the Dalai Lama for us. So thinking, may Kabje Lamas of Rinpoche quickly return. We can recite this together. Peerless teacher and assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please now bestow the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. At this, I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of the mind generation of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your kindness and your care and your patience. Yeah, and may these precious teachings ring true for us on a daily basis. Thank you for your time.